All right. So we started talking about the Great Depression. We talked about causes of the Great Depression, some things that had happened during the 20s, an unstable economy, people buying on credit, over speculation on the market. And then, of course, we also talked about the stock market crash. All of those causes then of the Great Depression. Another cause of the Great Depression, though, that we can look at is the Dust Bowl. It was probably one of the worst environmental crises that our country had seen. It was a drought for 10 straight years in the Dust Bowl region of the United States, all happening during the Great Depression. So we look at that also as part of the equation of the Great Depression in general. With many people being out of jobs, it means that they don't have money, they can't pay their bills. So many of them now no longer have a home. So you have many homeless people. And we actually get a new population of people, or a new nickname for these people, and they're called hobos. What it really stands for is homeward bound. They're people that don't have a home, so they are looking for one. And so they get that tagline or the nickname of hobos. Again, they're homeless, but they're looking for a better life. They're doing whatever they can to help out their own situation that they happen to be in. Many of them ride around the nation by riding the rails, which is basically train jumping. So jumping on a train, let it take you wherever, and then jumping off of the train. They're looking for work, obviously. They're looking for food. Really, they're in survival mode. And the majority of these people are men that had left either their families, or young men who had decided to branch out on their own. It was a difficult decision for some families. As you can see the quote we have here from one father saying, "I wanted to stay home and fight poverty with my family, but my father told me that I had to leave. But I didn't have it in my mind to leave until he told me, 'Go fend for yourself. I cannot afford to have you around any longer.'" So you can see that, this is from the son talking about his father, basically asking him to leave to go fend for himself. As mentioned on that previous slide, the quickest way, the easiest way to get around was just to jump on a train. And so that's oftentimes what they did. However, this was incredibly dangerous because it was illegal to do this. You could be arrested. And so many people were jumping onto the train once it was already in motion, and jumping off of the train before it comes to a full stop. So you can imagine how dangerous that would be. You also had farmers that were really angry with this. If the railroad happened to go, in the back of their property, they would basically have strangers jumping off of the train and coming onto their property. And so they did feel a sense of anger because they were frightened, right? Could you imagine having strange people, in your backyard? So not only was it dangerous, but it was also, angered people whose land they might be jumping onto. And then it was also a really lonely life. You really were traveling by yourself. Maybe for a time you might be with two or three people, but you'd usually end up splitting and going your own separate ways. When you spent time in class reading about survivor stories, or people living during the Great Depression, and what they did for entertainment or for school, one of the other things that I had to read was how they helped one another out, how people came together to support each other during the time of the Great Depression. And this is actually one example of that. So they actually formed a new written language during that time. It was a way that the hobos used to communicate with one another. They would scratch these or etch these on maybe fence posts outside, of a farmer's field. And it was a way to, again, communicate with one another. So you can see it might say, that the cops are active in this area. So maybe, stay away. That might be more by the railway station. But if there's one of them I know in the bottom middle that you would get food for working. So there's symbols letting you know that, or symbols letting you know that this is a wealthy family. Or if you talk religion, they'll give you food, things like that. So you can kind of look at the slide a little bit and see the different options that people had to leave messages for one another. But again, it was to try to help one another out. And that's what we saw a lot of during the Great Depression. So when we talk about the Dust Bowl, obviously one thing we need to know is we're not talking about one particular event. It's not a bowl like the Super Bowl, but the Dust Bowl is actually a region of the United States. So it's describing a geographical region, in particular the Central and Southern Great Plains region. And as mentioned, this was happening. This significant drought or severe drought was happening at the same time as the stock market crash, and so you end up with 10 straight years of really severe drought that's going to make it very difficult for people. So this would be another cause of the Great Depression. Not only do we have that drought, but with that, then you have these dust storms. Because what happens is you have this topsoil that's very, very dry. It becomes like this dust or sand. And then you have these strong winds that come through as well, right? This is also known as that idea of like Tornado Alley in the United States. And so years and years of farm practices that we didn't really know were harmful to the land actually end up taking away the protective grasses of it. That's why we see things now like alternating crops with each year. You maybe plant something different. It's to help protect the topsoil, to help protect the land in general. So again, the Dust Bowl region of the United States sees this very severe, significant drought during this era. With that severe drought happening in the Dust Bowl region, they had to deal with these dust storms that were known as black blizzards. Basically, it'd be like a wall of dirt or dust absolutely coming at you. Life was very difficult for many people living in the Dust Bowl region of the United States, as you can imagine. And so many of them actually end up leaving. Up to 60% of them actually lose their family farms. They're unable to make it because of the severe drought. Again, this drought lasted for nearly 10 years. It wasn't until early in the 1940s when rain came to actually provide some relief. Just to wrap things up, to kind of reinforce things that I've talked about, and to just further understanding of the Great Depression, again, these causes and the Dust Bowl and what life was like. I want you to watch a short clip of America: The Story of Us. It's from the episode titled "Bust." This clip is on Ed Puzzle for you, and it's just about 10 minutes. Also, make sure that you're listening. I've got one more slide for you with one last assignment. Once you finish watching that clip of America: The Story of Us on Ed Puzzle, I'd like you also to read just a short article that I've put on Schoology for you about the Dust Bowl. On the back side of your note sheet, you'll actually notice a graphic organizer asking questions like, well, what did people see? So what were the visuals? What was it like? And you can use the information from the video as well as the reading to answer those questions on that graphic organizer. Also, what are some of the physical effects? What are some of the physical symptoms, things that people struggled from during that time? And then how did people respond? Meaning, what did they do while living in this region of the United States? How did they respond to the crisis? You're going to see a few different options there with how people responded. So again, watch the video, read the article, and fill out the graphic organizer on the back side of your notes.